Welcome to Mysteries, Miracles and Myths, where we explore curious stories, magical tales and wondrous adventures from ancient times. The Pope and his Fairy Mistress. This story is from 10th century France, written in a book titled De Nugus Curialium by Walter Map. A similar version is also recorded by the English monk William of Malmesbury in his book De Rubis Gestis Regum Anglorum. There was once a man named Gerbert of Aurillac. Gerbert wanted to become a scholar, but he was from a poor background, and this goal seemed nothing but a dream. One day, he was having a stroll in the forest, when he heard someone calling his name. When he turned around, he laid upon the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was sitting in what appears to be a pile of gold. Gerbert became frightened, fearing the woman a phantom. He turned to run, but the woman called out to him, telling him that she is not so different from him, for she too is God's creature, the same as him. Gerbert stopped and decided to approach the woman. The woman told him that she is a fairy and her name is Meridiana. From afar, she had watched him and fell in love with him. Today, she decided to reveal herself and ask him to be her lover. In return, she offered riches, pointing at the pile of gold, as well as knowledge Gerbert was desperately seeking for, showing him a magical book. Without hesitation, Gerbert agreed. He became a very rich man, and the most learned man of his day. So much so that he became the appointed tutor of the then Holy Roman Emperor, Otto III. Gerbert's rise to the top didn't stop there. He became the Archbishop, then Cardinal, and finally ascended the throne of the Roman Catholic Church itself as Pope Sylvester II. Records of his vast knowledge survives to this day, in many of his very own writings, ranging in topics from philosophy, mathematics and geometry. He is also credited with the invention of the first fully mechanical clock in 996 AD. All this time, Meridiana had been his secret benefactor, the source of his wealth and knowledge. Time passed, and Gerbert, now Pope Sylvester II, was advancing in age. He asked Meridiana what men usually ask at that age. When will he die? Meridiana then told him not to worry, because he would only die after he had celebrated Mass in Jerusalem. Being in Rome, Pope Sylvester felt secured. As long as he doesn't go to Jerusalem, or even leave Rome for that matter, he will be safe. But one morning, after celebrating Mass at a local church, Gerbert saw a vision, the devil hovering above the altar, as if welcoming him. Hurriedly, he asked the name of the church and was horrified with the answer, the Church of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem. The Pope fell on his knees, confessed all his sins and begged for forgiveness. He also quickly gave instructions to have all his wealth given to the poor. But all this was in vain because soon afterwards, Gerbert of Aurillac died as foretold. Much later, Meridiana was depicted as a succubus, instead of a fairy. And the legend, of the Pope that sold his soul to the devil, for wealth and knowledge, was born. The Merman of Orford. During the reign of Henry II in the late 12th century, fishermen in the village of Orford went out to sea to cast their nets, hoping for a bountiful haul. When it was time to bring up their nets, they found the most unusual catch they had ever encountered. The event was recorded in Chronicon Anglicanum, by an abbot at a local monastery and English chronicler, Ralph of Coggeshall. The abbot wrote that the people could not decide if what they caught was a man or a fish. He described the catch as having the appearance of a man, bald but with a beard, and most curious of all, so at home at sea. This observation alarmed them, because all of them revered and feared the sea, and even the fishermen didn't know how to swim nor even had the desire to learn how. They decided to bring the creature to Bartholomew de Glanville, the governor of Orford Castle. Fear of the unknown gripped the populace, and the need to know the creature's nature or origin resulted in it being questioned and even tortured repeatedly by the soldiers, but not once did it show a hint of anger, nor answer in any semblance of a language except grunts and other strange noises. Suspecting it to be some sort of malevolent being, Bartholomew ordered the soldiers to bring the creature to church, but it showed neither aversion nor reverence, and even the sacraments meant nothing to it. With no answer forthcoming, the castle's dungeon became the creature's home and prison. Whatever food was offered, it ate readily. However, it liked raw fish best, which the creature pressed between its fingers until all the juice was squeezed out before consuming it. They also noted that the creature sought its bed as soon as the sun sets, and does not leave no matter what until the sun rises again the following day. This went on for quite some time, until finally, after 6 months of captivity, the creature escaped, never to be seen again. It had broken the net surrounding the waters to and from the dungeon. The soldiers commented that the creature easily damaged the net, and may have been able to do so at any time if it so wished. Why it decided to stay for that long may never be known. The Knight and the Ring. The county of Edessa was one of the 3 Crusader states, founded by the Christians in the Holy Land after the First Crusades. When it fell to the Muslims in the 12th century, Pope Eugene III immediately decreed a new crusade. King Louis VII answered the call. He amassed a great army, bringing with him the greatest knights of France. One of those knights was a man named Raoul. Raoul was from the Créqui family, a noble family from Artois, with a genealogy going as far back as the 9th century. Before leaving for his quest, his pregnant wife, Mahaut, gave him a ring, to remind him of his vows. During those times, men don't usually wear wedding rings. The practice became popular only recently, specifically, during World War II. Raoul, together with his king and fellow knights, marched for the Holy Land in 1147 AD. However, not long after arriving, the great army was defeated in the Battle of Mount Cadmus, 1148 AD. The overconfident Crusaders were routed by the Seljuk Turks, and King Louis VII barely escaped. Raoul de Créqui was not so lucky. He was captured by the enemy and taken prisoner after the battle. The Turks intended to exchange him for money, so they sent a messenger with a ransom demand. However, unbeknownst to Raoul and his captors, the messenger was killed before reaching his destination. His fate remained hidden from his family back home. In the meantime, Raoul was forced to work as a slave. For 10 long years he endured, knowing at any moment, his ransom will be paid, and he will be freed to join his beloved wife once more. However, his captors deemed the ransom unlikely to ever arrive after so long, and with Raoul already spent as a slave, decided to execute him the following day. As a final mercy, they informed Raoul of what's to come, so he could prepare himself. That night, Raoul prayed to God to forgive him for his sins. He prayed to the Virgin Mary to look after his wife, now that he will never be able to do so. Overcome with misery, he fell asleep. Raoul dreamt of a female figure appearing before him and released him from the chains that bound him. When he awakened, he found himself surrounded not by prison walls, but by trees and bushes. He assumed that he had died and was thus in heaven, but when he heard a group passing nearby speaking French, he realized that miraculously, he must be back in France. He approached the group to ask them for help. However, fearing him as a brigand, a few of them didn't allow him to approach. Raoul offered his empty hands to show them he is unarmed. One of the women came hurriedly toward him and looked closely at his hands. She held the ring in his frail fingers and tears came pouring out of her eyes. She hugged him tight and said, "I knew that you will come back for me." The woman was Mahaut, his wife that gave him the ring all those years before. And they lived happily, ever after.